Ambassador Thexvara stood on the bridge of her diplomatic vessel, watching the blue planet grow larger on the view screen. Earth. The humans called it Earth. Her compound eyes tracked the data streaming across her displays, and her mandibles clicked together in confusion. Something was wrong with the readings. Ambassador were detecting massive power signatures in orbit, her sensor officer reported. His voice carried an edge of concern that made her antennae twitch. "Show me," Thexvara commanded. The view screen shifted, and her breath caught in her throat. Ships. Enormous ships. They hung in space around Earth like sleeping giants, their hulls dark and angular. Each one was at least 3 times the size of her diplomatic cruiser. No, she realized as the computer finished its calculations, 5 times larger. Some were even bigger than that. "This cannot be correct," she whispered. "Run the scans again." The officer worked quickly, his 6 fingers dancing across the controls. "Ambassador, the readings are accurate. I count 47 capital ships in close orbit, hundreds of smaller vessels, and the power outputs." He paused, his voice dropping. "Ambassador, each of those large ships produces more energy than our entire diplomatic fleet combined." Thexvara felt her legs weaken. The Galactic Ascendancy had sent her here expecting to find a primitive species. Humans had only achieved faster-than-light travel 80 years ago. They were supposed to be newcomers, barely capable of crossing their own star system. But this was the military capacity of an advanced civilization. "Open communication channels," she ordered, forcing her voice to remain steady. "All frequencies. Standard first contact protocols." A moment later, a human face appeared on her screen. The creature had pale skin, dark hair tied back, and 2 eyes that studied her with calm intelligence. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Humanity space vessel Indomitable. Welcome to Sol System, Ambassador Thexvara. We've been expecting you." "You know my name?" Thexvara asked. "Your government sent word you were coming." The human smiled, showing her teeth. Thexvara had studied human expressions. This was meant to be friendly, though it looked predatory to her. "We've prepared a diplomatic reception. If you'll follow the navigation beacon, we'll guide you to our orbital station." As they approached, Thexvara got her first close look at one of the human dreadnoughts. The ship was called Indomitable, and it was a monster of metal and weapons. Gun batteries lined its hull in rows. Missile pods clustered like barnacles on ancient sea creatures, and at its heart something burned with terrible power. "What drives your ships?" Thexvara asked during the formal greeting ceremony. She stood in a massive hangar bay, surrounded by human officials and military officers. "Our sensors detect energy readings that should not be possible." Captain Chen gestured to a tall man in a white coat. "This is Dr. James Holland, chief of our Prometheus initiative. He can explain better than I can." The doctor stepped forward, holding a small device. "Ambassador, 60 years ago we found something in the outer reaches of our solar system. An object, not natural. We studied it for decades." He activated the device and a hologram appeared. It showed a strange crystalline structure pulsing with light. "We learned to copy what we found, to understand it. What we created we call cascade reactors. They generate enormous amounts of power." "Impossible," Thexvara said. "Such technology would require thousands of years of development." "The mathematics alone—" "We had help," Dr. Holland interrupted. "The artifact showed us things, designs, principles. We just had to build what we saw." Thexvara felt cold fear settle into her thorax. "You found precursor technology." The humans looked at each other in confusion. "Precursor?" Captain Chen asked. "An ancient civilization," Thexvara explained. "They vanished 50,000 years ago. Their technology was far beyond anything the modern galaxy has achieved. But their artifacts are encrypted, locked behind genetic codes and mathematical puzzles that cannot be solved. Thousands of species have tried, all have failed." "We didn't know we were supposed to fail," Dr. Holland said quietly. The implications hit Thexvara like a physical blow. Humans had stumbled onto technology that the entire Galactic Ascendancy had deemed impossible to unlock. And they had done it accidentally, through simple persistence and ignorance of how difficult it should have been. "How many ships have you built?" she asked. "Currently operational?" Captain Chen counted on her fingers. 234 capital ships. About 1,500 support vessels. We're expanding production. Earth has 6 shipyards now. Mars has 3. The colonies are building more. 234 dreadnoughts. The entire Ascendancy military, spread across 47 species and 10,000 worlds, had fewer than 3,000 capital ships. And most of those were smaller and less powerful than what humans had created. "I must contact my government," Thexvara said. "This changes everything." High Executor Vornash received the report 3 days later, transmitted through the quantum communication network that linked the Ascendancy. He sat in his council chamber, surrounded by holographic projections of military advisors and political leaders. They watched in silence as Thexvara's message played. "This is madness," one of the military advisors said when the recording ended. "No species achieves this level of power in 80 years. It took us 3,000 years to build our first dreadnought-class vessel." "Are we certain she's not mistaken?" asked another counselor. "We've analyzed the sensor data she transmitted," Vornash replied. His scale shifted color, displaying his agitation. "The readings are authentic. Somehow these humans have built a fleet that rivals our entire military, and they did it in less than a century. We should destroy them now," the military advisor said, "before they become a threat." "They're already a threat," Vornash said quietly. "Did you see the weapons arrays on those ships? Each one carries enough firepower to sterilize a planet, and they have hundreds of them. Then what do you suggest?" Vornash was silent for a long moment. "We need to understand how this happened. The precursors locked their technology away for a reason. Legends say their weapons nearly destroyed the galaxy. If humans have truly unlocked those secrets," he paused, "we may all be in danger, not from humans but from what they've unleashed." "I don't understand," a counselor said. "The precursors didn't hide their technology to keep it from us," Vornash explained. "They hid it to keep it from coming back. There are stories, very old stories, about why they disappeared, about what they were fighting." His eyes fixed on the image of the human dreadnought frozen on the screen. "I'm authorizing a full investigation. I want every precursor site examined, every legend researched, every ancient text translated. Looking for what? For whatever scared the precursors so badly that they scattered their weapons across the galaxy, and then died trying to hide them." Vornash stood, his voice grim. "Because if the humans have those weapons now, we need to know what's coming. What made the most powerful civilization in galactic history decide that extinction was preferable to letting their technology survive?" The council chamber fell silent. On the screen, the human ships hung in space, dark and massive and terrible. And across the galaxy, in forgotten places, ancient warnings began to stir. The humans had opened a door that was meant to stay closed forever. And something on the other side was beginning to notice. The archives of eternal memory sat deep beneath the surface of Krath Prime, the Ascendancy's capital world. Dr. Velmoth had worked here for 40 years, cataloging ancient texts and forgotten histories. She had never seen the restricted section open before today. High Executor Vornash stood beside her, watching as the massive vault door slowly ground open. Security drones floated nearby, their weapons armed and ready. Whatever was behind this door, the Ascendancy considered it dangerous enough to guard with lethal force. "How long has it been sealed?" Vornash asked. 2,000 years, Velmoth replied. Her voice echoed in the vast underground chamber. "Since the Consolidation Wars. The Council at that time decided certain knowledge was too dangerous to preserve, but they couldn't bring themselves to destroy it completely, so they locked it away." The door finished opening with a deep boom that Velmoth felt in her bones. Beyond lay a chamber filled with data crystals, each one glowing faintly in the darkness. Thousands of them, hundreds of thousands. "Find everything about the precursors," Vornash commanded, "especially anything related to their weapons technology. I want to know what the humans have actually found." Velmoth worked for 6 days straight, barely stopping to eat or sleep. Her team of researchers pulled crystal after crystal, scanning them, translating ancient languages that hadn't been spoken in millennia. What they found chilled her to her core. "Executor," she said, summoning him on the 7th day. "You need to see this." Vornash arrived within the hour, his scales dark with exhaustion. The entire Ascendancy leadership had been in constant emergency sessions since learning about the human fleet. Trade markets were panicking. Military commanders were demanding action, and no one knew what to do. "Show me," he said simply. Velmoth activated the holographic display. Ancient text appeared in the air alongside her translation. "This is from the precursor archives, dated approximately 50,000 years ago by our estimates. It's a technical manual, an instruction guide. For what? For weapons. Specifically for something they called cascade reactors. She pulled up the schematics. The same technology the humans are using. Vornash leaned forward, his eyes scanning the complex diagrams. This makes no sense. These reactors generate power by creating controlled spatial fractures. The mathematics required to even understand this. He trailed off. Our best scientists have been working on spatial mechanics for centuries. We're nowhere close to this. That's because we can't understand it, Velmoth said quietly. None of us can. Not naturally. She pulled up another document. This one showed genetic sequences. The precursors modified us, all of us. Every species in the galaxy except the humans. They altered our genetic code at a fundamental level. There's a block, built into our very DNA, that prevents our minds from grasping certain mathematical concepts. We physically cannot understand the principles behind their technology. Why would they do that? Vornash demanded. Because they were terrified, Velmoth said. She brought up more text, her hands shaking slightly. I found their final records. The precursors weren't just an advanced civilization. They were an empire that spanned the entire galaxy, trillions of individuals across millions of worlds. And they were dying. From what? From something they called the Void Shepherds. The name appeared in the ancient text, surrounded by warnings and fear. Entities from outside normal space. They fed on civilizations, on consciousness itself. The precursors fought them for 10,000 years using every weapon they had. Nothing worked. Vornash felt his blood run cold. How did they die? They didn't, not all of them. Velmoth pulled up the final records. They made a choice. They scattered their weapons technology across the galaxy, hiding it in artifacts and mathematical puzzles. Then they modified every developing species they could find, editing our genetic code to make us unable to use those weapons. Finally, they took their entire civilization and left. Left? Left where? The records don't say, but the implication is clear. They fled the galaxy entirely, trying to draw the Void Shepherds away with them, a sacrifice. They turned themselves into bait to save the species that would come after them. Vornash stood in silence, processing what he'd just learned. And the weapons they scattered? They left them as a failsafe, Velmoth explained. If the Void Shepherds ever returned, if they ever found the galaxy again, then maybe, just maybe, one species would be smart enough and lucky enough to find the weapons and figure out how to use them. The precursors couldn't risk leaving the weapons accessible. The technology is too dangerous. In the wrong hands, it could destroy entire star systems. But they also couldn't risk leaving the galaxy completely defenseless. So they created a test, Vornash said slowly. A test that only a species they hadn't modified could pass. Exactly. And the humans passed it. They're new to the galaxy, too new. They evolved after the precursors left, so they never received the genetic modifications. Their minds work differently from ours. They can see patterns and solutions that we literally cannot perceive. Vornash turned away from the display, his mind racing. Is there any indication the Void Shepherds are coming back? I don't know yet. But Executor, Velmoth hesitated. There's more. The cascade reactors aren't just power sources. They're beacons. When they're activated, they create ripples in space-time that propagate across vast distances. If the Void Shepherds are still out there, still searching, then the humans just told them exactly where to find us. Vornash finished. He felt sick. How long? The precursor records suggest it took approximately 50 years for the Void Shepherds to detect and reach a cascade reactor signature in their time. But that was 50,000 years ago. If they've evolved, if they've grown stronger. She shrugged helplessly. We have no way to know. Vornash closed his eyes. The Ascendancy had spent the last week debating whether to treat humans as a threat or an opportunity. They'd worried about military balance and political power. None of them had considered that the real danger might not be the humans at all. Send a priority message to Ambassador Thexavara, he ordered. Tell her to inform the humans immediately. They need to know what they've found, what it means. And what do we tell the rest of the Ascendancy? The truth? Vornash straightened his uniform. We tell them that humanity has discovered weapons left behind by an ancient civilization. We tell them those weapons were meant as a defense against an enemy that destroyed that civilization. And we tell them that by activating those weapons, we may have just announced our presence to that enemy. The people will panic. Velmoth warned. Let them panic. Vornash said grimly. Fear might be the only thing that keeps us alive long enough to prepare. Because if the precursors, with all their power and technology, couldn't defeat the Void Shepherds, what chance do we have? He left the archives, his mind already composing the message he would send to the Ascendancy Council. Behind him, Velmuth continued her research, digging deeper into the ancient records. She had a terrible feeling that they were running out of time, that somewhere in the darkness between galaxies, something ancient and hungry had just woken up, and it was looking for the source of the light that had disturbed its long sleep. The colony of New Britannia orbited a yellow star 12 light-years from Earth. Governor Marcus Webb stood on the observation platform of the main settlement, watching ships unload cargo from the latest supply convoy. 300,000 people lived here now, building farms and factories and homes under alien skies. It was humanity's future, growing and thriving. Then the alarm started screaming. "Governor Webb!" His security chief burst onto the platform, her face pale. "We have incoming ships. Lots of them. They're not responding to hails." Marcus ran to the command center, his heart pounding. The holographic display showed his worst nightmare. 43 ships had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. They were moving fast, accelerating toward New Britannia with clear hostile intent. "Who are they?" Marcus demanded. "Scanning now," the sensor operator replied. His hands shook as he worked. "Weapon signatures match Krell Syndicate vessels." "Governor, these are warships. Heavy cruisers. They're arming weapons." Marcus felt his stomach drop. The Krell Syndicate was famous across the galaxy. Pirates, mercenaries, and arms dealers who hired themselves out to the highest bidder. They were brutal and efficient, and New Britannia had exactly 3 patrol ships for defense. "Get everyone to the shelters," Marcus ordered. "Send an emergency transmission to Earth. Tell them we're under attack." "Earth is 12 light-years away," his chief reminded him. "Even at maximum FTL speed, help is hours away." "Then we buy time." Marcus activated the colony-wide alert. "All militia to defensive positions. Evacuate the surface settlements to the underground bunkers." The Krell fleet reached weapons range 40 minutes later. The 3 human patrol ships moved to intercept, their small guns firing uselessly against the massive cruisers. Marcus watched in horror as the first patrol ship exploded, torn apart by Krell missiles. The second ship lasted only seconds longer. The third ship, commanded by Captain Rodriguez, charged directly at the lead Krell vessel. "For humanity," Rodriguez shouted over the open channel. His ship rammed into the Krell cruiser at full speed, and both vessels vanished in a ball of fire. "They're launching ground assault craft," the sensor operator reported. "Estimate 2,000 troops. They'll be landing in 10 minutes. Marcus gripped the edge of the command table. This was it. The end of New Britannia. The Krell would take whatever they wanted and kill everyone who resisted. Earth would avenge them eventually, but that didn't help the people dying today. Then the sensors went crazy. "What is that?" someone shouted. New contacts appeared on the display. 4 massive signatures dropping out of FTL space directly between New Britannia and the Krell fleet. Marcus recognized the ship profiles immediately. Human dreadnoughts. The cavalry had arrived. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UHSV Indomitable to New Britannia Command. We received your distress signal. Sorry we're late. Please stand by." Marcus almost collapsed with relief. "Captain Chen, we have 3 patrol ships destroyed and Krell assault craft inbound." "We see them, Governor. Leave this to us." Chen's voice was cold and professional. "Indomitable to all ships. Engage hostile forces. Authorization code Prometheus 7. Weapons free." What happened next would be talked about in military academies for generations. The human dreadnoughts opened fire simultaneously. Missiles streaked across the void. Hundreds of them, each one guided by advanced targeting computers. The Krell fleet tried to maneuver, tried to activate defensive systems, but they were too slow. Too unprepared for the sheer violence of the human response. Marcus watched as Krell ships began to die. Not one at a time. Not in organized waves. They died in clusters, multiple vessels exploding within seconds of each other. The human missiles weren't just powerful. They were smart. They coordinated with each other, overwhelming defensive shields through synchronized impacts. "Indomitable, this is Krell Commander Thax." A voice crackled over the communication channel. "We were hired to capture human technology. This was a business transaction. We can negotiate." "You fired on a civilian colony," Captain Chen interrupted. "You killed peacekeepers. There is no negotiation. The Indomitable's main guns fired. Marcus had read about cascade reactors and the power they generated, but seeing it was different. Beams of concentrated energy, bright enough to hurt the eyes even through the filtered displays, lanced across space. They struck the lead Krell cruiser dead center. The ship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist. The energy beams punched through shields, through armor, through the reactor core, and out the other side. For a moment, the cruiser hung in space, a perfect hole carved through its center. Then it broke apart. Structural integrity lost. "All Krell vessels, this is your final warning," Chen announced. "Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Resist and you will be destroyed." The Krell commander was smarter than Marcus gave him credit for. "We surrender. Powering down weapons now." But 3 Krell ships tried to run. They engaged their FTL drives, trying to escape the system before the humans could stop them. It was a fatal mistake. The human dreadnought named Defiance fired something Marcus had never seen before. A single missile, larger than the others, accelerated to impossible speeds. It split into 3 separate warheads, each one tracking a fleeing Krell ship. When they struck, they didn't explode. Instead, they released pulses of energy that disrupted the FTL fields. The Krell ships dropped back into normal space, their engines disabled. Defiance closed the distance in minutes and opened fire with point defense weapons. Precise strikes crippled the ships without destroying them, leaving them dead in space. The entire battle lasted 14 minutes. 43 Krell warships had entered the system. 15 were destroyed. 28 surrendered. The 3 that tried to run were captured. The human fleet didn't lose a single ship. Marcus stared at the display in shock. He'd known humanity had powerful vessels. Everyone knew that. But seeing them in action, seeing the casual efficiency with which they dismantled a force that should have overwhelmed them, it was terrifying. Humanity's enemies would think twice before attacking again. But something bothered him. The Krell were opportunists. They didn't take risks without payoff. Someone had hired them to attack New Britannia. Someone had paid them to steal human technology, which meant someone in the galaxy saw humanity as a threat worth dealing with. "Captain Chen," Marcus said over the communication channel, "thank you for the rescue. But I have to ask, why were you so close? How did you get here so fast?" There was a pause. "We've been running patrol patterns near all the colonies," Chen admitted. "After Ambassador Thexavara returned to the Ascendancy, we detected unusual communications traffic. Encrypted, suggesting possible military action against human interests. We positioned our fleet to respond quickly. You were expecting an attack?" "We were expecting something," Chen said. "Governor, humanity is new to galactic politics. We have technology that others want. That makes us targets. This won't be the last attack. It might not even be the worst." Marcus watched as Marines from the human ships boarded the Krell vessels, securing prisoners. "What happens now?" "Now we send a message," Chen replied. "We broadcast footage of this battle across every communication network in the galaxy. We want everyone to see what happens when you attack human colonies. We want them to know that we don't just defend ourselves. We overwhelm our enemies, completely, decisively. Some species will see that as a threat," Marcus warned. "They already see us as a threat," Chen said. "At least now they'll also see us as dangerous. Maybe that'll keep them from doing something stupid." Across the Ascendancy, the footage spread like wildfire. Military analysts studied the battle in detail. Politicians debated the implications. And in dark corners of 100 worlds, plans were made and discarded. Humanity had proven something crucial today. They weren't just powerful. They were willing to use that power. And that changed everything. The Ascendancy War Council met in emergency session for the 7th time in 3 weeks. High Executive Vornash watched as holographic projections of military leaders argued with each other, their voices rising in anger and fear. The footage of the Battle of New Britannia played on repeat in the background, a constant reminder of humanity's overwhelming firepower. "We cannot allow this to continue," General Krathzar insisted. His scales had turned dark red, a sign of extreme agitation. "The humans grow stronger every day. Every week they launch new ships. In 6 months, their fleet will outnumber our entire military. They've made no aggressive moves against Ascendancy territory," Ambassador Thexavara countered. She stood alone against the military faction, her voice steady despite the hostility directed at her. "The Krell attacked them. They defended their colony. That's not aggression. They destroyed 43 ships in 14 minutes, another general shouted. They possess weapons that can disable faster than light travel. Do you understand what that means? They can trap entire fleets. No one can run from them. Bornash raised his hand for silence. The Council has made its decision. We cannot risk humanity expanding unchecked. General Krathzar, you are authorized to implement Operation Containment. Blockade Solsystem. No human ships in or out. We force them to negotiate, and if they refuse? Texvara asked quietly. Then we remind them that the Ascendancy controls 47 species and 10,000 worlds. They are one planet, one system. Eventually they will see reason. Texvara wanted to argue further, but she saw the determination in their eyes. The fear. They had convinced themselves that containment was necessary, that it would work. She could only hope the humans would be patient enough to negotiate rather than fight. She was wrong. 3 days later, 2,000 Ascendancy warships arrived at Sol System. They formed a sphere around human space, weapons armed but not fired. The message was clear. You are surrounded. Stand down. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the enemy fleet position itself. She'd been expecting this. The humans had wargamed dozens of scenarios after the Krell attack. A blockade was always a possibility. Orders, Captain? Her weapons officer asked. Hold fire, Sarah said. Let them settle in. Make them comfortable. They outnumber us 10-1, her tactical officer warned. If shooting starts, it won't, Sarah interrupted. Not from us. Open a channel to the Ascendancy flagship. General Krathzar appeared on her screen, his reptilian features set in a determined expression. Captain Chen, I am authorized to offer terms. Power down your cascade reactors. Submit your technology for Ascendancy oversight. In return, humanity will be granted full membership in the Ascendancy and protection under our laws. Let me make sure I understand, Sarah said calmly. You want us to give up our independence and our technology because you're afraid of us? We are concerned about stability. Your weapons are too dangerous to remain unregulated. Our weapons kept a civilian colony safe when your Krell friends attacked. Where was the Ascendancy then? Krathzar's scales shifted color. The Krell acted independently. We had nothing to do with... General, I don't have time for politics, and Sarah interrupted. Here's our counteroffer. You leave, now, or we demonstrate exactly why blockading Sol System was a terrible idea. You're outnumbered 10-1, Captain. Your ships are powerful, but you cannot defeat 2,000 vessels. Sarah smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. You're right. We can't defeat 2,000 vessels, but we don't need to. She nodded to her communications officer. Send the signal. Across Sol System, human ships began to move. Not toward the Ascendancy fleet. Toward each other. They gathered in clusters, forming precise geometric patterns. Strange energy readings spiked from their cascade reactors, building to levels that made Ascendancy sensors scream warnings. What are they doing? Krathzar demanded. Something we've been working on, Sarah explained. You know what cascade reactors are? They manipulate space-time, bend it, fold it. We've been experimenting with synchronizing multiple reactors, linking them together. Creating resonance patterns, the human ships began to glow. Bright blue light pulsed between them, connecting vessel to vessel in a web of energy. The space around them started to distort, reality itself bending under the strain. This is Project Sundial, Sarah continued. We can't move a single ship faster than light without using a jump drive. But if we coordinate dozens of reactors, if we create a synchronized field, then we can do something much more interesting. A massive portal opened in the center of Sol System, not a jump point, something bigger. A tunnel through space itself, held open by the combined power of humanity's fleet. The other end of the tunnel opened outside the Ascendancy blockade, hundreds of millions of kilometers away. You wanted to trap us, Sarah said, but you can't trap someone who can rewrite the rules of space-time. Goodbye, General. The human fleet poured through the portal. Ship after ship vanished from inside the blockade and reappeared outside it, moving to positions that put the Ascendancy fleet between them and Sol System. The tactical situation reversed in less than 3 minutes. Krathzar stared at his tactical display in horror. How? Precursor technology, Sarah explained. We keep finding new applications. This particular trick requires enormous amounts of power and perfect coordination. We can only maintain it for a few hours. But a few hours is all we need. You're bluffing, Krathzar said, but his voice shook. You won't attack. Starting a war with the Ascendancy would be suicide. Maybe, Sarah agreed. But if we go down, we're taking a lot of you with us. Your fleet is now trapped between our forces and our home system. Our weapons are locked on your ships. And unlike you, we've already proven we're willing to fire. She leaned forward. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to power down your weapons. You're going to leave Sol System. And you're going to tell the Ascendancy Council that blockading humanity was a mistake. Are we clear? Krathazar's pride warred with his survival instinct. Slowly, painfully, survival won. Stand down, he ordered his fleet. All ships power down weapons and prepare to withdraw. Smart choice, Sarah said. But General, tell your superiors something for me. Tell them we didn't ask to be part of your galaxy. We didn't ask to find precursor technology. But we did find it, and we're not giving it up. If the Ascendancy wants peace, we'll be peaceful. If you want war, she gestured at the portal, still glowing with impossible energy. Well, you've seen what we can do. The Ascendancy fleet retreated, and the human ships returned through the portal to Sol System. The entire confrontation lasted less than an hour. No shots fired, no casualties. But the message was clear. Humanity could not be contained. Ambassador Thexvara watched the reports flood in, sitting alone in her quarters on the diplomatic vessel. She'd tried to warn the council, tried to tell them that fear was the wrong approach, but they hadn't listened. Now they would have to deal with the consequences. The Ascendancy had shown its hand and revealed its weakness. The humans had demonstrated technology that made blockades meaningless. And somewhere in the archives, in the ancient precursor records, there were warnings about species that achieved too much power too quickly. The warnings said such species either destroyed themselves or transcended normal limitations entirely. Looking at what humanity had accomplished in less than a century, Thexvara wondered which path they would choose. She also wondered if the rest of the galaxy would survive long enough to see the answer. Vornash received General Krathzar's report in silence. The military option had failed. Containment had failed. Everything they'd tried had only revealed how far behind the Ascendancy had fallen. What do we do now? One of his advisors asked. Vornash thought about the precursor records, about the Void Shepherds, about ancient enemies and desperate choices. We do what we should have done from the beginning, he said finally. We talked to them, really talked to them, not as inferiors to be managed, but as equals. Maybe even, he hesitated, maybe even as allies. You want to ally with them? After they humiliated our fleet? I want to survive, Vornash said quietly, and I'm beginning to think humanity might be our only chance. Dr. James Holland hadn't slept in 3 days. He sat in his laboratory on Earth, surrounded by holographic displays and data streams that would have made no sense to anyone else. Before him, projected in the air, was the precursor artifact, the original object humanity had found in the Kuiper Belt, the source of all their advanced technology. For 60 years, they'd studied it, learned from it, built weapons and engines based on its designs, but they'd never fully understood it. There were layers to the artifact, encrypted sections that had resisted all attempts at decoding. Until now, Dr. Holland. His assistant stood in the doorway holding a coffee. You should rest. You're going to collapse. Can't rest, James muttered, his fingers dancing across the controls. We're so close. The diplomatic situation with the Ascendancy is deteriorating. If we're going to find answers, we need them now. He'd been working on a new approach. The artifact communicated through mathematical patterns, through spatial geometry that human minds could grasp, but Ascendancy minds couldn't. What if the encrypted sections weren't meant to be decoded logically? What if they required intuition, creativity? He input a sequence based on human music theory, the golden ratio, Fibonacci patterns, things that felt right rather than calculated right. The artifact responded. New data flooded his displays, overwhelming his systems. James watched in awe as schematics unfolded, as text appeared in languages that the computer slowly began to translate. And at the center of it all, a warning 50,000 years old. Oh God, James whispered. He reached for his communication device with shaking hands. Get me Captain Chen, get me everyone now. 6 hours later, every major human and Ascendancy leader sat in a virtual conference room, their holographic projections surrounding James Holland as he explained what he'd found. The artifact contained a final message, James said, from the precursors themselves. It's addressed to whoever unlocked their technology. To us, he played the recording. The voice that emerged wasn't sound, not exactly. It was patterns of information that their computers translated into speech, but the emotion behind it, the fear and desperation that came through perfectly clear. If you are hearing this, then you have succeeded where we failed. You have unlocked the weapons we scattered across the galaxy. You have the power to defend yourselves. You will need it. The voice paused, and James saw every face in the virtual room focused intently on his display. We were the precursors. We built an empire that spanned the galaxy. We thought ourselves invincible. Then the Void Shepherds came. Images appeared alongside the voice, vast entities, neither matter nor energy, existing in the spaces between dimensions. They fed on consciousness, on thought itself. Entire civilizations vanished as the Shepherds passed through, consumed and erased. We fought them for 10,000 years. We built weapons that could crack planets, engines that could move stars, ships that existed in multiple realities simultaneously. Nothing stopped them. Nothing even slowed them. More images. The precursor civilization in its final days. Desperate and dying. Billions of beings making impossible choices. We realized we could not win, but we could delay them. We modified every developing species we found, editing their genetics to make them invisible to the Shepherds. We scattered our weapons technology, hiding it behind tests that only unmodified species could pass. Then we did the only thing we could do. The recording showed the precursor fleet, millions of ships leaving the galaxy entirely. Heading into the vast darkness between galaxies, we fled. We drew the Shepherds away, using ourselves as bait. For 50,000 years we have run. We have kept them distracted, kept them from finding the galaxy again. But we are dying. Our civilization cannot sustain itself forever in the void. Eventually, the Shepherds will realize we are gone, and they will search for new prey. The recording focused on a single precursor, its form strange and beautiful. If you hear this message, then our time has ended. The Shepherds are returning. They will follow the energy signatures of the cascade reactors. They will find you. But you have something we never had. You have our weapons. You have time to prepare, and you have the ability to do what we could not. What? Sarah Chen asked, though the recording couldn't hear her. What can we do that you couldn't? The precursor seemed to answer her question. We were one civilization, powerful but alone. You are many species, many minds, many different ways of thinking. Together you might find a solution we never conceived. In our final gift to you, we leave the schematics for the Reaper Array, the ultimate weapon we designed but never completed. If you can build it, if you can make it work, you might survive. The recording ended. Silence filled the virtual conference room. How long? Vornash asked quietly. How long until they arrive? James pulled up sensor data. We've been detecting spatial anomalies at the edge of the galaxy for the past 2 months. We thought they were natural phenomena, but according to the precursor data, they match the signature of Void Shepherd scout entities. The main force, he swallowed hard. 6 months, maybe less. Can we build this Reaper Array in time? General Krathzar asked. His hostility toward humanity had vanished, replaced by simple fear. I don't know, James admitted. The schematics are incredibly complex. It requires resources from across the galaxy, rare elements, precise manufacturing, and it needs power sources from both human cascade reactors and ascendancy quantum cores. We'd have to work together. Then we work together, Sarah Chen said firmly. She looked at Vornash. No more blockades, no more political games. We face this together or we die separately. Vornash nodded slowly. Agreed. I will present this to the Ascendancy Council. Given the circumstances, I believe they will approve an alliance. There's something else, James said. The Reaper Array isn't just a weapon. It's a dimensional anchor. If it works, it won't just kill the Void Shepherds. It'll seal them out of our reality permanently. But to do that, it needs to be activated from multiple points simultaneously, coordinated across the entire galaxy. How many points? Ambassador Thexvara asked. 47, James said. 1 for every major species in the Ascendancy, and 1 for humanity. We all participate or it fails completely. The implications were clear. Trust. Complete trust across species that had been enemies days ago. Faith that everyone would do their part when the moment came. We can do this, Sarah said. We have to. Over the next 6 months, the galaxy transformed. Human engineers worked alongside Ascendancy scientists, Shipyards that had been building weapons of war retooled to construct components of the Reaper array. Ancient rivalries were set aside. Old hatreds were forgotten, because the alternative was extinction. Sarah Chen found herself commanding a combined fleet, human and alien ships working in perfect coordination. They trained together, drilled together, prepared for the battle they all knew was coming. Thexvara became the liaison between species, traveling constantly to resolve disputes and coordinate efforts. She was exhausted but driven by hope that cooperation might achieve what separation never could, and James Holland barely left his laboratory, refining the Reaper array designs, solving problems, pushing the boundaries of what was possible. On the final day, when long-range sensors detected the main Void Shepherd force entering the galaxy, 47 arrays activated simultaneously. They were scattered across thousands of light-years, but linked by quantum entanglement and synchronized cascade reactors. The combined power of every advanced species in the galaxy, focused on a single purpose. The Void Shepherds came. Vast entities of impossible geometry, sliding through the barriers between dimensions. They reached for the galaxy's consciousness, seeking to feed. The Reaper array fired. Reality itself screamed. The dimensional anchors activated, creating barriers that the Shepherds could not cross. Energy beams of incredible power lanced out, not to destroy but to push, to force the entities back into the void between dimensions, and then to seal the doorways behind them. It worked. The Shepherds raged against the barriers, but they could not pass. One by one they retreated, and when the last of them was gone, the anchors locked into place. Permanent wards against the darkness outside reality. The galaxy was safe, for now. Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, watching the energy displays fade. Around her, her crew cheered. Across the communication channels, she heard celebrations from dozens of species. They had done it. Together, they had achieved the impossible. "Captain," her communications officer said, "Ambassador Thexvara is calling. She says the Ascendancy Council wants to meet with you." "Tell them I'll be there," Sarah said. She smiled tiredly. "I suppose we have a lot to discuss, starting with what we do now that we're not all about to die." Thexvara's hologram appeared. "Captain Chen, the Council has voted unanimously. They want to formalize the alliance, create a permanent cooperation between humanity and the Ascendancy, if you're willing." "Willing?" Sarah laughed. "Ambassador, we just saved the galaxy together. I think we can manage to be neighbors." She sobered slightly. "But there need to be conditions. Mutual respect, equal partnership, no more attempts at containment or control." "Already agreed," Thexvara said. "The Council understands now. Humanity isn't a threat to the Ascendancy.